Hello everybody, this is Scott from Nostalgic Nightmares, and welcome to my review of Goosebumps number 38, The Abominable Snowman of Pasadena. I don't really have much of an introduction for this one because I normally talk about what I remember of the book or my thoughts of it when I was younger. I don't really have any memory of this one. I know I've read it because I've read all of the Goosebumps, but like I say, I don't really remember much about the storyline from when I was younger, other than the fact that it was about a snowman and at some point they were in California. I guess the only real, what's the word I'm looking for, kind of knowledge I had up front was from the Goosebumps movie, because the Abominable Snowman is one of the main villains, or at least the first villain that appears in the movie. But from reading the book, it's clear that the movie and the book Snowman are very different. Clearly the people who made the movie have never read the book. They must have just seen the cover or the title and gone, yeah, Abominable Snowman, that'd be a good villain, because he acts nothing like he does in the book. So I'll get straight into what happens in the book, because I have no more introduction to talk about. Okay, so this book is 29 chapters and 129 pages long. And our main characters this time around are Jordan and Nicole Blake, who are brother and sister. And they live in the very hot city of Pasadena in California. Now, I've never been to California, but I've been to Florida, so I have a good idea of what kind of heat you get over in America. So it's pretty much hot all year round. They don't really have a winter or anything like that. So they're sat talking with their friends, particularly a friend called Lauren. And there's these other two people who are involved called Kyle and Cara Miller, who are the bullies. But they're not real bullies, they're just kind of like jerks that run around the streets that they live on. But the main friend is a girl called Laura. And they start talking about how they wish they could see snow, and they're so sick of the heat. Even though they like the heat, it would just be nice to have a winter where there's snow and there's some cold. And obviously they see these movies where there's like snow all over the ground and in the trees, and they wish they could have that. Coming from England, we get quite a lot of snow in the winter, or we used to. Not so much anymore, but we still get some snow. But we used to, when I was a kid, get proper white Christmases. So the snow and the trees and cars and houses and everything would be covered in snow, and it was magical, it really was. Especially once everyone's got all the Christmas lights up and everything like that. So I get the want to see all that kind of stuff, because if you've never been around snow, it must be quite an exciting or kind of exotic thought, I guess. Like for me, being in England, being in a sunny climate is exotic because we don't get a lot of sun or a lot of heat. So yeah, I get it. And they also have their dad, who's one of the main characters, who is divorced from his wife, but doesn't really talk about why. They're just divorced. And he is a photographer, and he gets a job opportunity to go to Alaska and basically try and hunt out the Abominable Snowman. For those who don't know what the Abominable Snowman is, he's kind of a myth in real life, so it's never really confirmed or denied whether he actually exists. People just claim to see this abominable snowman creature in places like Alaska. They have kind of blurry photos similar to a Yeti or the Loch Ness Monster. There's blurry photos which some people believe, some people will say that could be various other things. So it's kind of up in the air whether they exist or not. The general belief is that they don't, and that they're all just either hoaxes, so people have faked it, or they're just blurry photographs or misconstrued evidence of other things. But there are some people out there who believe it, and the Abominable Snowman is one of them. And it's similar to this big Yeti creature that lives in the snow, and is usually kind of covered in like white fur or brown fur. And yeah, it just lives in the mountains in the snow. So he gets this job to go to Alaska and decides to bring the kids along because they have this babysitter which they can't go to. So the kids finally get their first opportunity, much to the chagrin of Lauren, who wants to see the snow. They get the opportunity to go and, go and see the snow and experience it for the first time. Going to Alaska might be like the scariest time to see the snow for the first time, because it is cold in Alaska. I've never been, but I've seen enough documentaries to know that it is very cold, and they probably will enjoy seeing the snow for about 5 minutes. And then they'll get so cold and die to go home. Anyway, they go to Alaska, and when they arrive there on this small plane, they are greeted by a guy called Arthur, who is going to be their guide. So, typically when you go to these kind of countries, similar to if you go mountain climbing or anything like that. They tend to give you a guide who lives locally, who knows the area, who knows where to go, where not to go. I can take you there safely and securely, and will give you a good idea of kind of where you are and what's best to do and what to avoid doing. And this is kind of standard in those kind of countries because they know what they're doing. You don't, as a guest or as a tourist. You can go and not have them, but it's very much recommended if you don't want to die to get a guide. So they're greeted by this guy called Arthur, who is got like dark hair and a big thick beard, and he's very much a typical what's called a musher. And a musher is a driver of like the snow sleds with the dogs. People who get driven around in the snow by these dogs are called mushers. But he's not really happy about what they're doing. He doesn't think it's a good idea to go out looking for it because of the myths. He's had friends who've gone looking for it before, people he used to work with and explore with, and they never came back. And then people who have gone exploring for them, and they never came back. So he's not really happy about the job that he's got. He's advising the guy not to go there and go looking for it. And on top of that, he's really not happy that he's brought kids along as well, because this is a dangerous climate to be in. It's snowy, it's cold, there's a lack of food. It's really dangerous to be there as an adult unless you know what you're doing. And even then, you don't know what accidents you could come into contact with, such as like avalanches, snow drifts, holes in the snow, wild animals, polar bears. I don't know if they're in Alaska or not, but you know what I mean. He believes the Abominable Snowman is real, and not just that, but with the climate and the danger that they're going into, he's very much not happy that the kids are there. But they go to the local town and they stop for some food before they start what is the 10-mile walk to the cabin that they're staying in. And if you've never walked 10 miles in a nice climate with a good amount of water and food next to you, or even none of that, is a very hard amount of distance to walk. So walking 10 miles in the kind of the snow is really difficult, especially if you're in the Alaskan tundras, because it is literally just white for miles, and you can't see anything but white. And you can't sometimes differentiate between what is the floor, what is the ground, depending on if it's snowing or not. And there's mountains, but just because they're mountains covered in snow doesn't mean you can walk up them. Because if it's a massive pile of snow, you try and walk over it, you might sink into it because it is just a pile. Or it might be snow that's covered a rock, in which case you can walk over it. So there's all these kind of things that you really got to be careful with. And they've got this 10-mile walk towards where they're going, and the dog sled is dragging along what is their case with equipment in, and this case is described as being like humongous, like you can fit bodies into it, which does become important later on. It's this gigantic photo case with equipment in, which the dogs drag along because they can't drag the people and the case. So the dogs drag the case while the people walk beside them. And as they're going along, Arthur is basically telling them stories about the sightings of the snowman and the various different things that have happened in there. So he's kind of trying to put them off a little bit. But what's the main guy called? Well, I can't remember his name. The dad. Does he have a name? I haven't wrote down his name. Let me have a quick flick through while I'm talking about the next bit. Yeah, as they're travelling along to the next part, to where the cabin is, they're very much like the kids are enjoying being in the snow. They're really enjoying like the difference in temperature, the difference in climate, playing with snow, making snowmen and all that kind of thing. Yeah, I think he's just called Mr. Blake. I'm having a quick flick through the first few chapters, and I can only see him described as Mr. Blake. I could be completely wrong. I'm trying to find the bit where he arrives to meet the guy. Yeah, he's just described as Mr. Blake. No, Gary Blake. Not that that's important. Yeah, they're walking through the tundra to the cabin. The dad is taking loads of pictures of the scenery and the mountains and all that kind of stuff. But the kids aren't paying attention to what they're doing, and the kid, who is called Jordan, for some reason I keep forgetting the names, Jordan, falls through a hole in the snow and gets trapped inside, not a cave, but this kind of pit inside the snow. And luckily, with the people being nearby, they could see him falling into it. They could see where he was. But if you know anything about these climates, if you don't see where people fall into the ground, you could be walking for miles. because it is literally just like a plane of white. It is really dangerous to walk around in. It is literally just white as far as you can see. So to fall into it is quite a dangerous situation to be in. But yeah, the kid falls into it, and they manage to get him out. And after they climbed out, they eventually get to the shack that they're staying in, which basically just consists of a stove heater, so they can make food and get heat, and some bunk beds for them all to sleep in. It's not really the ideal place to be, but it's described as it used to be quite a busy place, being a musher cabin, which is where obviously the people who ran the dog sleds stayed. But people don't go that way anymore, just because of the stories and all that kind of thing. So the cabin's kind of abandoned, which is why it's just so basic now. Anyway, they go to sleep that night, and the next day, there's this bit where Jordan is a bit of a prankster, and he has these fake footprints leading up to the cabin. Dad believes it's the Abominable Snowman, but it's not. It's just Jordan, and the dad kind of makes him feel guilty because they're saying, look, we get that you like to play jokes, but we're in a really dangerous area of the world. Try not to play these jokes because, pardon me, I'm trying to catch my breath. Yeah, try not to play these jokes because it's because of where we are. Anything could go wrong. Wild animals could appear at any time, and if you're making us believe that there's wild animals coming up to the cabin, that could be really dangerous for us. So he really kind of guilt trips Jordan into stopping him playing these jokes in the future. And like he said, like I mentioned earlier, we only got you out of that snow pit because we saw where you fell. If we were a mile away, you could have been there forever. We could have never have found you. Because you might scream, but if it's windy and it's snowy, wind there is really loud because there's no... When we get wind here, particularly in England, it can be loud, but we've got so many buildings and things blocking the wind directly that the wind kind of dies down a bit. It's not as loud as it would be. But if you've ever been like in the middle of a storm and you hear that direct wind hitting you, you know how loud it can be. So he's saying, yeah, please don't play the jokes because we're in such a dangerous area that, you know, it's just not safe to do these kind of things. But later on, they go travelling to the last seen location of this monster because they don't know where else to look. So that's the best bet, really, the last place it was seen. Along the way, they come across this herd of elk, which are kind of like mooses, kind of, which get freaked out and run away. But it's kind of a great sight to see, and it's a great picture opportunity for the dad. And they get to the base of this snow rise where these trees are. But as they get there, the pack of dogs that are with them start barking and getting really antsy, and they don't want to go into the trees up this mountain. And Arthur is just like, look, no, I'm not going into the trees. The dogs can clearly sense that there's something wrong. As everybody who knows anything about horror books or horror films, if the dogs aren't happy, get the fuck out of there. Dogs can sense ghosts. God can sense gods. Not gods can sense danger. Dogs can sense danger, ghosts, monsters, all that kind of thing. Dogs know what they're doing. So Arthur is obviously refusing to go in there because of the dogs. And the dad's like, come on, let's just go in, it'll be fine. We'll leave the dogs here, we'll tie them to something. We'll come back, it'll be fine. But Arthur is like, no, I am not going up there. I'm not doing what... I know you're paying me. I ain't going up there. No, I'm sorry. And he just walks off. He just starts to walk back to the cabin. So the kids have no other choice, and Gary's got no other choice other than to go back with him because they don't really know where they are. Arthur's the one that's taught them where to go and took them there. So Gary's got no choice but to go back to the cabin and says maybe we can convince him to come back tomorrow. I don't know, but right now we've got no choice but to leave. And they get some firewood from the snow rise. No, the kids later on that night go to get some that day go to get some firewood from where they were with the snow rise, and they notice this frozen stream, which apparently is like this big great thing because they like the run to tell the dad about it because he's like, oh my god, it's like a frozen stream, I've got to go and take pictures of it. I'm sure a frozen stream is very beautiful, but when you're in an area where there might be monsters and wildlife, running off to take pictures of a stream might not be the smartest idea. But at some point when they're home, the dogs are freaking out in the little thing that they're staying next door. It's like a kind of like a stable, for lack of a better term. It's just like a little room attached to the cabin, which is where the dogs are staying. So after the dinner, when the dad goes to look at the stream, the kids go outside to build a snowman because I think they're meant to be sleeping, but they're just not sleeping. They've got nothing else to do. They've got no electricity or anything like that. So they go to build a snowman outside because YOLO, what else is there to do? But when they go outside to build the snowman, they notice that there's a bit of not a commotion, but there's noise around the corner where the dogs are. And they go around the corner to see these dogs, and they can see Arthur untying all these dogs. And so they ask Arthur what he's doing, because he's literally just untying all these dogs for apparently no reason. And he basically says, "Fuck you lot, I'm out of here." And he literally takes the dogs and the sled and just disappears. And he literally just abandons all of them in the middle of the Alaskan tundra and just is like, you know what, I'm out. I'm done here. I ain't staying around here any longer. Screw you lot. I'm not even going to give you the chance to come back with me. I'm just gone. Which is really bad. Not just because he got paid to be there and it's his job, but he didn't even try and take them out. The nice thing to do, other than not leave, would be to kind of go, look, I'm going. I'm not safe here. I don't feel safe here. I'm out. But no, he literally just is like, fuck this lot. I'm gone. And just disappears, which is really bad. And it's a really scary situation to be in because they don't know where they are, how to get home, that kind of thing. It took them 10 miles to get there, and he's just left them. So the kids try and chase after him when he disappears because they don't know what else to do, really. Like, they're scared. And so they're running after him, and they're chasing him in the sled, and obviously the sled's going quicker than they are. So the sled disappears into the snow, and by this point they realise they're lost. They've run around after him for so long, they don't know where they are. Because if you've ever been into that kind of, not lost alone in the middle of Alaska situation, but when you're in an area where it's literally just nothing around, you can't tell your left from your right, your front from your back. Because if you look around, you can't see anything except the same thing. And by this point, it's snowing. So they try and follow some of their footprints back, but the footprints eventually stop because the snow's filled them in. And they're walking. They don't really know if they're walking in the right direction, back to the cabin or not. But they eventually fall into another snow pit, similar to how Jordan did at the start. So Nicole and Jordan are in this snow pit, and the snow starts filling in on them, and they're really scared, so they're back against the wall. And conveniently, the wall caves in, and they find a secret entrance to this cave system. And they're in this cave system, and they're walking around really scared, not really sure what to do. Walk into this big open room, and in the middle of this big open room is a giant block of ice. And inside this block of ice is a frozen, abominable snowman. Because reasons. No idea why. This snowman is just frozen there in a block of ice. And they're amazed, obviously. Oh my god, the snowman's real. They look at it, they kind of look around and walk around it, but they're like, thank god it's in a block of ice. But then they hear this crack. I can't even do a crack, I'm crap at sound effects. They hear this crack, and this... If you ever heard ice cracking, you know how scary that sound can be. Normally because you're stood on top of it at the time, which I have done before. When I lived in Germany when I was a kid, I remember the park that we stayed in froze over once, and me and my friends thought it was a good idea to go into the park, and I got on the roundabout, tried to get off the roundabout, stepped onto the ice, and I didn't think at the time that the ground was literally like a centimetre underneath it. I just, because I was a kid, thought, oh my god, I'm going to fall in and sink and drown to death. I just stepped on the ice and it started to crack. I remember like crying and running as fast as I can off the ice. So you know that the cracking of ice is a scary sound. Not just because there's a scary monster behind a block of ice either. So they kind of run away, and they get kind of trapped, and they hear this crack and crack and crack, and the monster breaks out of the cube of ice. And it's actually described as quite a scary monster. It's similar to the monster that's on the cover of the book, which is good. It's giant, and it's kind of ape-like in a way, but it's big, and it's furry, and it's got a scary mouth and scary teeth. And when it growls, it's really like a lion growl. It's like a real monster, and it's scary. They're in the middle of the cave, in the middle of Alaska, underground, with this giant, scary-ass monster. And they're kind of backed against the wall. They don't know where else to go. And the monster kind of corners them against the wall, and is growling at them and growling at them. And it kind of claws at them, but then it claws at their backpacks, and takes the backpacks off them. Because, yeah, I forgot to mention they have backpacks on for some reason. I think they put him on when they went to chase Arthur. But the snowman takes the backpacks off them, rips them open, and for some reason, because Goosebumps logic, it takes out their bags of trail mix. Now, I don't know what trail mix is, because I'm British and we don't have that. My guess is it's kind of like nuts, maybe raisins, that kind of thing. Like the crappy stuff I see in the health food aisle that just no one likes to eat, but it's the healthy stuff to eat. Like nuts and peanuts and that kind of stuff, maybe. I should have to look this up because I really don't know what trail mix is. Yeah, it takes the trail mix off them, rips the bags open and starts eating it. And then I think it rips the other bag off them, eats their trail mix, and then picks them both up and kind of puts them over his shoulders. And there's this like small entrance through the back of the cave, which I think they might have seen, but went into it and there was no way out. I don't know. The snowman picks them up and finds an exit to the cave and climbs out of like a snow pit and is carrying them over the snow. So obviously they're very, very scared at this point. They're being carried along by this giant snowman creature. And the snowman hears these dogs barking I'm sure it is dogs barking. And it drops them and then just walks off because reasons. And yeah, it just drops them and walks off. So they eventually kind of stumble their way back to the cabin. The dad arrives back and they're like, Dad, we found the snowman. We saw this cave. We got trapped in this cave. The snowman was there. Holy crap, come with us. Do they take him back? See, this is what I can't remember, because I know the dad's like really into all the scary stuff that's going on. I can't remember if they want to go back and see it, or the dad convinces them to go back because he wants to see it. I think the dad convinces them, which again kind of reminds me of a book I would always recommend called Fright Night, where there's this knight of shining armour. It's Ghost of Fear Street book, which is haunted, and the dad is dead excited that it is haunted and it's attacking his children. So the dad convinces them to go back to the cave. They go back to the cave, climb in, and in the middle of the cave again is the snowman in a block of ice. No explanation as to why, but the snowman is frozen in a block of ice again. And the dad decides the best thing to do is to take it back to California with them. So they go and drag that trunk that I mentioned before, the massive trunk, back to the cave. And they cut around the ice until it's basically just about covering the snowman. And he can fit inside in the trunk because he's bigger than people, but he's not like massively bigger. And for reasons unknown to anybody, he obviously takes pictures of them, of the snowman as well, but decides to put it in the trunk because the trunk is airtight. Therefore, the ice won't melt on the trip back to California. I'm no scientist, okay, guys? But I'm sure airtight does not mean refrigerated or frozen. Airtight, yes, means no air going in, but surely that doesn't mean that you take a block of ice to sunny California in Pasadena and in the back of like a jumbo jet, which is going to be hot anyway. Surely it would melt. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure airtight doesn't mean the same thing. Just because air won't get in doesn't mean it's not going to have a temperature change. I don't know. I might be wrong, but it kind of, when I read it, it kind of flashed an alarm bell in my head that didn't seem right. But hey ho, they put this snowman in there, and as a little bit of a joke, Jordan put some snowballs that were lying next to the snowman inside the suitcase as well, because if they're not going to melt on the way back to California, he wants to take the snowballs and throw them at Lauren, just so that she can experience some sort of snow. I thought that'd be like a nice little prank they can play on her, but we'll give her the chance to see a little bit of snow as well. So they finally go back to California, and if you were thinking at this point, I thought the snowman was in Pasadena. Yes, on page 100, I think it is. I think I wrote down 100 in my notes, so I'm going to assume it's page 100. They finally make it back to California. So yeah, we've only got about 29 pages left, and they finally made it to the area that's in the title of the book. So I don't like the title of the book because it's misleading, but they finally make it to California, 100 pages in, and they're keeping the snowman in their dark room where the dad develops photographs, but it's kept in like, they've kind of cooled down the dark room so it's really cold, but somehow the flight over was fine, and so that the snowman doesn't defrost. And they're really glad to be back in the sun because of all the terror they had over there, being abandoned in the middle of nowhere, falling through various pits, discovering a snowman, whatever. And the dad goes off to meet scientists and experts to kind of tell them about his discovery and what he's found. So at this point, Lauren, the friend, is being told by Jordan and Nicole what happened in the holiday. Doesn't believe them, because why would you believe your friend who said, yeah, we discovered the snowman? She doesn't believe anything they say. So they're like, look, come into the dark room, we'll show you the snowman, we brought it back. Which is like the greatest sentence you must be able to say to your friend. But they go into the red room, the dark room. I keep thinking of red room in my head before I say dark room. And they open the suitcase, and there is the snowman. And Lauren's like, holy shit, the snowman is there. And at this point, Jordan takes out 2 snowballs and puts them in his pocket so that he can use them to throw at her. But doesn't do it straight away. What happens next? Yeah, he gives one to Nicole and keeps one to himself. And they've shown Lauren the snowman, so they go outside, where Nicole throws one of the snowballs at Lauren. It misses Lauren and it hits a tree. And then the tree magically gets covered all in snow, as does the little bit of ground around the tree, because the snowballs have magic properties. What? What the hell? This snowball is magic, and yeah, they throw it against the tree and it magically gets covered in snow, and there's just like snow all around. And then Jordan gets so scared and shocked by this, he drops one of his snowball onto the ground, and the ground just gets covered in snow for like, I don't know, a few meters around them. It literally just spreads out and gets frosted over, covered in snow. Because what? Snowballs are magic, apparently. Yeah, they're all really shocked, but Lauren's dead excited because actually she doesn't know how snow works, because somehow, even though she doesn't know how snow works, you must know this is not normal. But she gets dead excited and picks up some of the snow from the ground and belts a snowball at Lauren, at Nicole, the sister. So Jordan's like, no! But the snowball hits Nicole, and Nicole instantly freezes and gets covered in frost and snow and becomes like a statue. And at that point, obviously, they start to freak out because there's nothing they can do. They don't really know what's going on. They just know that these snowballs, for some reason, are magic and have frozen Nicole over. And they take her into like a really warm room. She doesn't melt. They take her towards the oven in the house and turn the oven on and leave the door open so she gets the heat on her. Doesn't melt. Take her to a furnace, which I think is in the basement. She doesn't melt. So, but and she doesn't melt because it's magic snow, not because of any other reason other than for some reason this snow is magic. And then Jordan gets this memory that when the Abominable Snowman was carrying him and Nicole in Alaska out of the cave, the snowman was really, really, really warm, even though he was in the middle of an ice block and then in the middle of Alaska living in snow. The snowman was really warm. So he gets an idea to wake the snowman up, because if the snowman's warm, maybe it can help melt Nicole, which is a really bad leap of judgment. It reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever seen this, the original Batman movie. And I don't mean Batman the one with Jack Nicholson, I mean back in the 1960s, I want to say, when the Batman was Adam West. And it was all like every time they hit someone, the big power came on the screen and bang and all that kind of stuff. The really cheesy Batman. They had a movie where the Catwoman, Penguin, Joker and the Riddler were 4 bad guys that were working together to come up with all these schemes or whatever. And there's a scene where Batman deduces that all those 4 are working together, and in the stupidest way possible. Like, there's a bit where he gets a shark on his leg and he goes, oh my god, the shark was pulling my leg like a joke. That must mean the Riddler's involved. And the shark is a fish. Cats like to eat fish. That means Catwoman must be around. And there's something about no, pulling my leg like a joke, that must mean the Joker's involved, not the Riddler. And there's a bit where something began with P. P? Penguin begins with P. penguin must be involved, something like that. It was like really weird, like leaps of judgment that he put like 2 and 2 together and came out like 300. And I don't know how he did it, but he kind of the really ridiculous ways of figuring out who the bad guys were, which reminded me of this, like, let's melt the snowman and wake up this evil snowman creature because he might be able to melt Nicole. It doesn't really make sense. Most of this book doesn't make sense once they get back to Pasadena, so whatever. But yeah, so they try and wake the snowman up, not by heating him up. He gets a bag of trail mix, holds it near the ice, kind of shakes it around, and eventually the snowman wakes up because he wants the trail mix. And he eats the trail mix, and then goes outside, sees that Nicole is frozen, goes over to her, hugs her, because reasons, and as he hugs her, Jordan thinks he's going to attack her, but he doesn't, he just holds her. She melts, goes back to normal. Then he sees the frozen tree, goes over to the tree, hugs the tree melts, sees the snow on the ground, rolls around on the ground, the snow melts, and then he runs off into nowhere, into the wilderness, because R.R. Stein clearly had a lot of crack that day. I might sound uninterested, it's just because, what? Like this snowman and magic snow, and he just hugs things and they melt, and then he literally runs off into the distance and probably goes and hides in the mountains, and the kids don't even try and chase him. They just go, oh, he's probably going to go and find somewhere cold. Never mind. What? Like, there's this discovery which can make the dad rich. They've brought it back from Alaska. They think he can be really dangerous, and yet they just let him run off. Don't try and ring the police. Don't try and chase him, because he could be dangerous. You don't know that. He could go and attack people. But he literally runs off, and they just let him and don't even try and stop him. It's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. This whole Pasadena bit sucks, because it makes no fucking sense. Like, hugging trees and then melting. But whatever. I'm just ignoring it. There's a couple more snowballs in the suitcase. I apologise. I think I might have said before he puts 2 snowballs in the suitcase. He didn't. He put a few in. Maybe 4. There's 4 in there. And because he doesn't want anything to happen with them again, he buries the snowballs in like a vacant lot which is nearby on the same street, similar to how Night of the Living Dummy, the book I just reviewed, has a vacant lot nearby, which must be R.R. Stein's convenient go-to idea. There must be a vacant lot next door for them to do stuff with. So he buries the snowballs in there, and then thinks they're safe now because the snowballs have been buried and they're forgotten about. I'm stuttering quite a lot. The dad comes home from seeing the scientists, and they have to explain that the snowman's run away, and he's like, oh, I don't mind. He's disappointed, but he's just glad they're safe. I mean, I would be more than disappointed. I would be friggin' like, heartbroken, because that could make you rich. But he's just glad that they're safe, but he's like, you know what, I've got my pictures, and so the pictures have got to be enough to do something with, so I'll show them my pictures instead. They develop the pictures, and for reasons unbeknownst to anybody, the snowman is no longer visible on the pictures, just a block of ice, because reasons. That's never explained. So that's all kind of left there. The kids go outside to hang out with Lauren, but unbeknownst to them, they see that they didn't realise that the 2 prankster kids they mentioned earlier at the start of the book, they don't really have much to do with it. They saw them burying the snowball, so they go into the house or wherever it was, and they start to dig up the snowballs. They run over to stop them. Jordan and Nicole, run over to stop them. They're like, don't do it. But just before they get there, Kyle picks up one of the snowballs, goes to throw it at Kara. Jordan shouts, no, don't do it. And the book ends as Kyle throws the snowball, and they hear thwack. And that's the end of the book. It ends on a cliffhanger, where you have to assume that Kara got hit by a snowball. She would have been frozen. No snowball. There's no snowman around to melt her. And that is, that's your book, guys. Okay, on to the open or unresolved plot points for this book. There's a few that I mentioned as I was doing the story part of this review. such as the fact that they just let the snowman run off into the distance and didn't really think twice about it. Seems a little strange, but considering it is quite a scary creature, you'd think maybe they might want to stop it or get the authorities involved. So that felt a little bit strange. I guess one of the main ones really is the magic snow and the whole ice block reappearing is never explained at all. When they found him in the ice block, he's obviously still alive because he cracks out of it when he senses the trail mix, and then runs away into the snow and then reappears again, frozen again, and it's something to do with this magic snow. And there's the snowballs that they take to Pasadena, which freeze the tree in the ground and Nicole. It's just really strange, and there's absolutely no attempt at an explanation given at any point, which as a reader is really odd. Like normally with these books, there's always some attempt at kind of this is why things are happening, or why something might be magic, or I don't know. It's always kind of there's some sort of loose explanation to some degree. But this one, it's just so odd and so random, and it's never explained. I don't really know how to describe it, but the Abominable Snowman is a legend, obviously, and no one knows if it's real or not. But I can accept the fact that there's just a creature that lives in the Alaskan snow, in the mountains or whatever. That in itself is a stretch of belief, but you can just kind of accept that it's a monster that exists, because there is all these crazy creatures and animals that we don't know exist in the world, and we're constantly finding new species. So you know what? Yeah, I can believe that. But for there to also be like magic snow, that's isolated to this one part of Alaska as well, because not all the snow in Alaska is magic by the sounds of it. It's just the stuff in this cave or near this cave. Again, I can't really say for definite because it's never explained. But the snowballs that he took out of the cave were the ones that froze parts of California. And there's the whole fact that the ice keeps the snowman frozen until he senses food to get out of it. But the snowman still has the ability to melt the other parts of the snow, like when the coal gets frozen. The snowman can melt that, but he can't melt the ice that he's in. He has to like break out of it. It's all really weak logic, and there's no like set rules that you can kind of come up with your own explanation as to why it's happened. It's all really odd and really strange, and I didn't like it at all because it was just so random, and it felt like he was just kind of throwing, for lack of a better term, throwing shit at a wall and hoping it sticks. Yeah, I didn't like that at all. It was so illogical and random. It just made no sense. Because I really liked the first part of the book, but I'll get into that more in a minute. But I liked the first part so much that when the crazy snow ice stuff came into it, it just felt like he was smoking dope that day and just going on a crazy tangent. But I don't know. Yeah, just really strange. The only other things that I've really noted down, minus the crazy airtight suitcase, is I would like to have seen Arthur get some sort of comeuppance. It's a similar thing that I said in Revenge of the Living Dummy, when we discovered who was the culprit behind most of the bad things in the story. They got no sort of consequences or comeuppance for what they did. They just kind of did their bad things and that was it. Or at least that's all we saw. In this story, I would have liked to have seen, even if the dad had said at the end that he got Arthur reported and he got fired from his job or whatever. I don't really know if he was hired by anyone official or if he was like a freelancer. I'm not too sure. But the fact is, he did leave them in the middle of Alaska without a sled or dogs or whatever, I think. I know he left them in the middle of Alaska and took the dogs, so he must have left the sled as well. I'm not too sure. But yeah, it's he should have had some sort of comeuppance, because with kids' books as well, there's always like a moral story behind a lot of it. So it would be nice for the kids to read the fact that this guy got paid to take them out there. Yes, he did warn them off it, but he did just leave them in the middle of nowhere in a dangerous situation. So it would have been a good moral story to have him had some sort of kind of consequence of that, because often that happens in these books. The bad guy does something bad to the main characters and therefore usually gets punished by some sort of way. I don't know. I don't have to. You know what I'm trying to say? Like in like horror films where there's a bad guy and then normally like one of the first people to get killed, that kind of thing. The only other thing that I mentioned in my notes is that at the end of the story, I didn't really talk about it much in the review. I mentioned it briefly. Obviously, the dad is taking pictures of the Abominable Snowman in his ice block, but when he comes to develop the photos at the end, the Iceman, he's not in the photos. It's just a block of ice. And again, there's no explanation as to why he wasn't in the photos. And I can't even try and come up with an explanation other than the fact that it's something to do with this crazy magic stuff. It's a similar problem I had with Night of the Living Dummy. They have these magic things going on, but never really pin down what the rules are. Like in Night of the Living Dummy, it's this dummy says he's got magic powers and he spews green stuff everywhere, but never really says anything about what the limits of his powers are, what specific powers he has. So there's this snow stuff which freezes you, but the snowman can come out of it when he pleases. It's really weird. So why he never shows up in the pictures, don't know. I don't want to tear the book apart because there is some good points to this book, but there was just a lot of things that just made no sense to me, and it really ruined this book towards the end, because it was just like all these things were happening without any logical reason as to why. But I'll talk about the good points in a moment. Firstly, I'm going to do my usual, talk about my worst cliffhanger. And in this one, I'm actually going to talk about 3 in 1. I'm going to cheat a little bit. And it's the first 3 chapters of the book, because they're all very much Goosebumps fake-outs. So chapter 1 ends where the dad's photos disappear, but it's just a prank by Jordan. Chapter 2 ends where Jordan's freaking out because something's happening to him, and he's just getting poked by a popsicle. And chapter 3 ends where one of the twins is going to throw a rock onto, is it Jordan's head? Yeah. Jordan's head. But then it turns out it's just like a paper mache rock. It's just a very typical, it's what Goosebumps are famous for. But as an adult reading them, sometimes they're really cheesy and a bit like, oh, for God's sake. So having 3 fake outs one after another, which reminds me of the beginning of the Animal Rebellion, which is a Shivers book, which I would highly recommend. It didn't really sit well with me, to put it nicely. If my voice sounds a little bit more hoarse today than it did at the start of this book, I am recording this in 2 parts. The actual story part I recorded yesterday, and then I had to go out and see my friend because he just moved to the city that I live in Manchester. And then I've come today to record the second half. So we had a few drinks and stuff, so if my voice sounds a little bit different, a little bit more hoarse, it's probably because I had a few drinks last night. Anyway, on to my favourite cliffhanger, which, if you've got the book with you, turn to chapter 13, or the end of chapter 13, and it's the bit where Arthur leaves the kids and the dad in the middle of Alaska and just bolts off, takes the dog and just leaves. And he takes the sled as well. I'm looking at it now. He takes the dogs and the sled, and it's just really bad, like a really good cliffhanger, because he's leaving them in such a dangerous situation. Like, they're in a country they don't know about. They're in the middle of nowhere. They can't see anything for miles. There's nothing for miles. It took them 10 miles to live there. I apologise if you can hear loads of random sounds from outside my window. It's like rush hour again, and I live on a main street, so I hear a lot of bad engine brakes or vehicle brakes when they need to get the vehicle looked at. But yeah, back to the cliffhanger. Yeah, it's a good cliffhanger because it leaves the characters in a really perilous situation where they're just in a really bad place, and we don't know how they're going to get out of it because of where they are and what they've come to, and I just thought it was a really good cliffhanger. In terms of the end twist, it was okay. The Kyle throwing a snowball at Kara was okay. I kind of saw it coming when they buried the snowballs in a different place, that maybe this kind of cliffhanger was coming. But I liked it. It's a typical Goosebumps twist, so in some ways it's really cheesy but really enjoyable. There's never a sequel to this book as far as I'm aware, because I know in The Most Wanted they do some sort of references to older books, but as far as I'm aware this is the only Abominable Snowman main book. It was an okay twist. I kind of liked it. It was kind of cheesy but fun. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about that, but yeah, it was okay. Onto the cover itself. It's okay. I like the colours in the cover. I kind of like the contrast between the snowy creature with the snowman and the sunny palm trees and everything of California. So it's a nice contrast which fits the title quite well. If you read the book, it doesn't really fit the book very well, because while the snowman does come to California, it's only for like a brief part of the book. Whereas for me, I like the Goosebumps covers where it kind of reflects the whole book itself. So I would have liked maybe a picture of the Abominable Snowman in Alaska, just in his cave, in his ice block, just him in the middle of the snow being scary. I don't know, or maybe just a picture of, like, say, the snowman frozen in his ice block in the middle of an underground cave. That would have been quite cool. But because the actual Pasadena part was actually a very small part of the story, it's kind of disappointing that the cover was reflecting this. But at the same time, I get why they did it, because this whole snowman in California is like a nice hook, and will bring people to the book that have never read it before, because they're like, oh my god, that's kind of cool. There's this snowman, he's in California, what's going to happen, blah blah blah. How did he get there? What's he doing? Blah blah blah. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, guys, you know what I mean. You know what I mean, guys, you know what I mean. I'm a little bit tired right now. Oh, I need to sleep some more. Onto the story itself. Yeah, I like the story. I liked the first 100 pages more than I liked the last 29 pages. I really enjoyed all the stuff in the snowy tundra of Alaska. And I think the reason I liked it was because it reminded me very much of some very typical horror films that I've watched, where people are on a research project, or they're filming a movie, or whatever, or they're doing some sort of investigation, and so they go to this really dangerous part of the world, or into a dangerous situation, and they always have an expert with them, or a tour guide who knows where to go, knows where the sites were, usually has some sort of story where people they knew never came back, and then they get there and something bad happens to the guide, normally, and just crazy stuff happens in this dangerous situation. And so it was very much reminiscent of, let me think of a few films. The Frankenstein Theory was one where they went to the snowy place with the guide and he got killed. Troll Hunter, which is a great film if you've never seen it. It's a foreign film where they go and investigate this guy who says he hunts trolls, and he takes them into the mountains, into the woods, and shows them the trolls that he hunts, and they are real. Even the Blair Witch Projects, where they don't have an expert, but they go into this perilous situation where they know they're looking for something dangerous, and this dangerous thing starts to hunt them instead. So, it reminded me very much of some very typical horror films, and because I'm a massive horror fan, as anyone who listens to my channel would know, if you haven't listened to it before, I love all kinds of horror, particularly ones like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, that kind of stuff, like the slashers. I have Freddy Krueger figurines, I have a Chucky doll in my bedroom. So yeah, I like horror stuff. So if you've ever watched like these kind of horror films, you know what I mean. It's just very reminiscent and hits a lot of the horror tropes to these, going to somewhere they've never been before to do some investigation, but while they're there, they meet the thing they're investigating and things don't go to plan. So yeah, it reminded me very much of that, which I liked. The characters were okay. The dad was alright. They didn't really develop much as characters, but they weren't necessarily boring characters. The creature was alright. He could have had a lot more to do. He had a lot of potential to be like a scary character, but they kind of relegated him to being this guy who randomly freezes and eats trail mix. Whereas, like I said before, the movie Snowman was a lot different. He was running around, attacking people, and was quite a not scary character, because I didn't think the film was scary. But, he had the potential to kind of do a lot of damage, which he did to some degree. Which is really different to the Snowman here. The Snowman here is this trail-eating, hugging, rolling around on the floor creature. So I didn't really like the creature that much. I thought the film one was better. But all the stuff from page 100 onwards I really didn't like. The magic snowballs, the freezing of Nicole, and then the hugging of Nicole, and it just didn't sit right with me. I'm not going to go into it again properly because I mentioned it before, why I didn't like it, because it was just stupid. But yeah. But I guess I liked the majority of the book because I liked all the stuff in Alaska. I thought it painted a good scene of Alaska. All the endless snow for miles, you can't see where you're going. Falling into snow pits is real. Snowstorms are real. The fact that your footprints only last for a certain amount of time, if it's snowing, is real. They are in a dangerous situation which they get out of a bit too quickly. So I liked all the stuff in the snow and the fact that they found the snowman, but they didn't find it by just stumbling on it. Well, they did, but but the fact that he didn't just appear out of nowhere killing them or trying to kill them, he was frozen somewhere, which was quite cool. Yeah, I liked it, but I didn't like the end part. So for me, it's kind of hard to rate this one because it was building up and building up and building up to something in the first 100 pages. And whilst I was still sat there going, why aren't they in California yet? Because the title of the book is The Abominable Snowman of Pasadena. Surely the majority of the book should take place in Pasadena, but it didn't. And I'm kind of glad it didn't, because the Pasadena part was the worst part of the story for me. I kind of wish they would have changed the title to, I don't know, just The Abominable Snowman of Alaska or something stupid like that. And just kept it all in Alaska, because that was the best part of the book. So to give this book a rating, I've got to look at the fact that the title was bad compared to the fact that most of the book took place in Alaska. However, that was the best part of the book. That was the fun part. Once you actually moved it to Pasadena, it kind of really ruined it for me. There's some good cliffhangers, like with Arthur disappearing. A few fake outs, but that's to be expected. The end twist was okay. The characters are alright. The creatures starts off okay, but turns into just this poor imitation of the Abominable Snowman. So taking all that into consideration, I normally have a rating written down, but for some reason this time I didn't do it. I am going to rate this book a... No, not an A. I'm not rating it an A. I'm rating it... I'm going to say a B minus, because I started to really get into it and really forget that it should be in California. And I really love the snowy stuff, but that kind of, whilst that was the majority of the book, the last few chapters just really ruined it for me. Like, it had so much potential and just really squandered it, and I'm really disappointed by the ending. But yeah, that's my review of The Abominable Snowman of Pasadena, which is Goosebumps number 38. Let me know what you think, guys. Please leave a like, comment, or subscribe if you like this video. My next review is going to be another Shivers one, because I've not done Shivers for a while. I have 2 to pick from, because I've read 2 of them. I mentioned this kind of a while ago when I first started the channel. I have tons of books, and I keep meaning to do a collection video, but I've not got the right filming equipment right now. But I have tons of books. I'm trying not to read loads in between reviews so that my memory of them is quite fresh. But yeah, I've got 2 Shivers to pick from. I will do one of them shortly, and then we'll probably go to do my first Goosebumps series 2000. So guys, yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you watch this video, if you like this video, and what you thought of the book. So until next time, guys, my name is Scott from Nostalgic Nightmares, and until I see you next, keep on screaming.